Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Daryl Henry. I'm the Executive Director of the Western Caucus Foundation. I'm pleased to host today's policy briefing on the priorities of the Congressional and Senate Western Caucuses for the 119th Congress. The foundation is a nonprofit organization that's affiliated with the Western Caucus, and we help run education trips, field tours, policy briefings in DC, and really I like to say, extend the field for the Western Caucus and provide a cultural exchange program for those not from the West to learn all about Western and rural America issues. So with that, I want to introduce our Senate Chair, Senator Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming.
Well, this is going to be an exciting year for the Western Caucus, both House and Senate. We're in a position with President Trump and a new cabinet to really make a difference in the West. And there are four areas that the Senate Western Caucus has set as its priorities. They are public land management, endangered species reform, wildfire prevention, forest health, and then permitting reform. And these are all avenues of collective agreement between the White House, the cabinet, and House and Senate leaders. So we're so delighted to have two new members in the Senate Western Caucus. I'm excited to welcome John Curtis and Tim Sheehy from Utah and Montana, respectively, to the caucus in the 119th Congress. The president is just doing an amazing job with his executive orders. One of the things that he did that was most exciting, I think, to a lot of people in the Senate Western Caucus is that he declared a national energy emergency and is opening our federal lands and waters to responsible energy development. It's part of his whole goal of bringing down inflation. And we all know that if we have more energy and we can export our energy to other countries, it does a couple things. It helps bring down inflation because of the direct costs associated with getting groceries onto grocery shelves and getting items that can cut inflation into people's hands at a cheaper price because of the cost of transportation, the costs of energy. So we think the president's on the right track with his goal of cutting inflation by having America once again become energy independent and indeed becoming an energy exporter. Our caucus represents big energy states in Wyoming, my home state, the Powder River Basin, in Montana, eastern Montana, and the Dakotas, of course, the Bakken region, and Texas's enormous onshore and offshore capacities. I went to California, Doug, to the Palo Alto area in October, since I had the wonderful privilege of not being up for election in the last election cycle. I got to spend some of my time in Palo Alto meeting with, from big to small, the cutting edge leaders in artificial intelligence. And they all told me the same thing, that the limiting factor for American ingenuity is going to be power. AI needs so much energy, it's almost unfathomable, and it all has to be new energy. And I don't mean new in terms of new sources of energy. I mean traditional sources, new sources, you name it. We have to ramp everything up in order to stay competitive globally in artificial intelligence, in fact, to become the global leader. So U.S. energy production has to ramp up, and heaven knows in the Western states we know how to do it. So it was good to hear them not have a deaf ear when I talked about oil, gas, and coal, as long as we could do it in a way that limits emissions and is globally responsible. And even some of the bigs that you wouldn't have expected would listen to that message with open ears. It was really exciting. So we're working all angles to promote Western energy dominance. And now we have the opportunity to do it in a way that we can prove that we could use traditional sources of energy in a very responsible environmental manner. I want to end with this. The Western Caucus has never been stronger. The allegiance between the House and the Senate Western Caucus is one of my favorite things because I get to work with some of my own old colleagues from the House with whom I served on the House Natural Resources Committee and, loved so much. In addition, the majority leader, Thune, the majority whip, Barrasso, the conference chair, Cotton, and vice chair Langford are all members of the Senate Western Caucus. So we have a direct line to Senate leadership. So our agenda items will be front and center. And of course, Mike Lee will now be chairing energy and natural resources in the Senate, another good friend and member of the Senate Western Caucus. So this is going to be fun. Buckle your seatbelts. It's going to be a wild ride. And I couldn't be more pleased than to have as my wild ride partner, my old friend from the state of California, chairman of the House Western Caucus, Doug LaMalfa.
I got a lot of moms helping me out even at the time. So it's Cynthia, thanks so much. My great colleague who I met, one of the first people I met when I was a new member of the House. We were eating tacos up in the whip's office there. She introduced herself to me. And I've never forgotten that intro. It's just how kind you were and what a great partner. And indeed, with all these horses here, it's going to be a wild ride, right? Yep. So thanks so much. And thanks for joining us all. I'm really proud to be a member of the Western Caucus and then be bestowed the responsibility and pleasure of being the House chair of that and having a great partner in the Senate like Cynthia, Senator Lummis, and this also intends to be a fun group as we go out there and learn and then spread the news and spread the gospel on what we do in the West. But let me also caveat, you don't have to be just from the West. You have to also care about rural issues and care about the things that comes from the resources we have, which is a national issue. So I invite anybody, any House or Senate member, please look at being a part of the Western Caucus. You don't have to live in the West, or as my friend G.T. Thompson, he would claim being in the western part of Pennsylvania got him in, even though it's east of the Mississippi. But all can join and be part. All you have to do is have a passion for what we're talking about here on our resources, on our opportunities, and so there's much to cover. And currently, we have 91 House members that are Western Caucus members, as well as the 29 Senate members that want to help fight for our Western way of life. Indeed, we'll have many opportunities this year thank goodness, with the new Trump administration here and the fast start he and his team have gotten towards rectifying the pain and disaster the last 4 years of the Biden administration have inflicted upon property rights and the priorities we have in order to have a strong economy. The things that I'm a farmer in my real life at home in Northern California, and we know true wealth comes from the land. And whether it's farmed, whether it's ranched, whether it's mined, whether it's felled in the timber industry, that's where it starts. And then all the related industries that turn that into a product that American people need. So with that great momentum we're getting from the White House, the Western Caucus wants to work hand in hand as a great partner with the president, with his cabinet, with his team to advance what we're talking about. It's so refreshing. I feel like I've been like Stockholm syndrome for the last 4 years. I forgot what it's like to have common sense coming out of those areas. It's really through almost, but it's going to be such a great partnership to get back to the priorities that make us strong, the economies, the industries that have done that. So it's going to come, a lot of it from the West, but indeed across the whole fruited plain. As Cynthia was touching upon here, with our energy needs, and she mentioned inflation. two main drivers of inflation these last 4 or 5 years have been massive government overspending and the cost of energy. My real life as a farmer, once again, just a couple of years ago, I saw the prices of my fertilizer triple and the prices of my fuel double. So, well, I can't just absorb that. So hopefully we're going to make it up on the price in the marketplace for the rice I grow or for the corn grower down the street or the peaches, the almonds, the rancher, whatever the commodity, they're going to have to pass that along. Otherwise, you're going to see cheap imports or you're just going to do without. And so if we're not getting, if we're not harnessing the energy we need, then consumer prices are going to keep rocketing upwards. And maybe we lose more and more of the people who produce because they can't stay in business at these costs. As Senator Lummis was mentioning as well, the demand for energy is only going to dramatically increase. We expect a 50% increase in global energy consumption by the year 2050. But just in the US, when we're talking about the tech groups that are going to need more and more of that power. And then we won't, I don't even want to hardly talk about the electrification of all the day-to-day things, electrification of the cars or pickups, trucks, trains. I mean, I like electric trains that are this big, but I don't want them to have to be relying on that for, for the big locomotives. So if much of that mandate comes along, like it's trying to happen in my home state of California, where's all that electricity going to come from? Where's it going to come from when they're hell bent on tearing down dams and make hydroelectric CO2 free power, right? I lost 4 dams in my district, and they're after them up there in Washington and another one in Mendocino County in California, one after another. Where's this energy going to come from? Well, Western Caucus will be helping to lead the way, again, working hand in hand with the Trump administration on establishing that we need mass new quantities of energy, traditional energy, the Senator was talking about. It doesn't have to be all from some new innovation because we have the tried and true that works well with gas and oil and coal and many new nuclear opportunities as well. Nuclear is becoming more accepted again. We've gotten over the China syndrome more and more so, whatever that is, and some industrial accidents in other countries. We've done a stellar job in this country. So uranium needs to be, we need to develop more of that and more of the refining of that uranium in this country and go fast forward quickly, working with Nuclear Regulatory Commission on fast forwarding more nuclear opportunities because that's CO2 free power as well as the hydro. You're not going to see me spouting a lot on CO2. I'll quiz the room. What percentage of the atmosphere is CO2? Yeah, you guys knew that was coming. So go home and learn that number here, and you wonder why are we hell-bent on ruining our economy and exporting it to China and others by chasing the CO2 thing on the premise of climate change. We're ruining ourselves over that. But the answer is 0.04%. Okay, so it isn't much. It's a rounding error. But at the same time, we can still demonstrate that to our other partners around the world that when we do these things CO2 free, or that we use American gas versus Russian gas, that there's dramatic savings on the output there as well. So why aren't we doing all we can to be a good partner with Western Europe on exporting more natural gas to them so they're not relying on the Russian bear who all they have to do is turn that 90-degree ball valve, and shut off that pipeline anytime they have a political whim by Russia versus the Western countries. Well, how crazy is that, relying on that source? Sorry about the voice here. So continuing to unlock these mineral resources. We've been 100% reliant on, for example, in the US, on 15 different minerals. We're relying so much on imports. What if they decide to cut those exports from those countries off to us? Where are we at? We're in a bad way. We'd have to be scrambling to redefine what it is we're going to do with those precious minerals. So, but the radical environmentalists that the Biden administration has listened to has opposed many domestic mining projects. One example was told me a while back is that a certain copper mine took 29 years to permit. And copper is going to be a key element for whatever amount of electrification we do, whether it's vehicles, which I hope it isn't, or as was talked about with AI and so much more from the information age rapidly expanding. We'll need these products. We'll need them to come from here. American jobs, American know-how, a much we'll do it ecologically much more soundly than they're going to do in any of these other countries. So that should be a win in the overall global effect. So President Trump is leading the way on that, helping in Minnesota, Alaska, Arizona, and many other states on unlocking these resources. It's going to be amazing. So talking about locked up, Biden administration locked up 674 million acres of land and water, many of them resource opportunities. More of these national monuments, and another new one up in my district, it just locks off the ability to properly manage forests. We can just let it burn instead. So I'll be big on advocating for healthy forests. I'm privileged to be able to chair the subcommittee on forestry on the House Ag Committee, and keep waging that battle because I'm getting tired of million-acre fires in my district, and 600,000 acre fires, and 400,000 acre fires, and my colleagues in other states in the West having to deal with the same thing because whether Forest Service is going to be the ones managing or find other ways helping with having the private sector help, we got to get after it. So another key question is why are we the number one importer of wood products in any Western country? We should be putting our loggers to work and making our forests work for us. Indeed, we made a good, strong step with Chairman Westerman's Fix Our Forest Act, passing that out of the House. We need our friends in the Senate to grab a hold of that and make that happen as well. I think this could be the year. This could be the year for that. So let's make it happen. If the trade situation in our partners to the north and south, Canada exports mass amounts of timber to us. Well, things aren't going so good with Canada and how our borders are being treated there or in Mexico. And we have to rely on ourselves even more for these wood products. And why wouldn't we anyway? Let's employ our people. And a key element to me being successful in all this is reforming the Endangered Species Act, because it's such a roadblock to all the things we're talking about here. And nobody wants species to go down, to be lost, but we see it's been weaponized against good, sound policy. Clean Water Act is frequently weaponized. Clean Air Act weaponized. NEPA, everything takes a NEPA now to do a simple, tiny project. And that means a year or two delay. When we're talking about salvaging forests, for example, after the fire, you have to do a 1.5 or 2 year NEPA. Well, how are you supposed to salvage timber? You have this limited window of time that has been scorched or burnt on the outside. You can recover that and get economic value out of that within 6 months, a year, maybe a year and a half, what have you. Well, if you have to study to death and then someone comes back like, well, you didn't study for the snail dart or whatever, and then you have to do it all over again, you've completely lost that. So ESA reform is going to be key to that as well. And I'm optimistic we can make some inroads on that during this 2 year or 4 year session, because what really is successful these 2 years, but the American people are going to give us another stamp of approval for 4 years. Right, Senator? So with that, we have a lot of work cut out for us, but we have positive work we can actually accomplish with the trifecta we have now. And so that should be exciting for everybody. Western Caucus is going to play a really key role in this resource-based and ag-based economy that is going to strengthen America's hand in the world and strengthen the hand of people economically, for families, for themselves, to prosper. Who could be against all that? So I'd like to introduce one of my great colleagues from Wisconsin there, who's been a strong voice in committee and out on the road for his common sense, these things we're talking about, whether it's our resources or even on the border. So Tom, Tiffany, please join us here. Thank you for your leadership and for your help.
Thank you so much, Representative LaMalfa. And yeah, I'm one of those people that's east of the Mississippi, but I'm here because of the rural issues that the Western Caucus really focuses on. And they're so important for us to deal with across the country. And we're not one of those big energy producers, Senator Lummis, but we're a big energy consumer. And shouldn't we do right by our consumers and bring down the cost of energy? Because as they've said so eloquently, if we're going to bring inflation down here across America, if we're going to prosper once again, we have to have low-cost energy. Look at the history of our country. Ever since oil was found in Pennsylvania, when we have low energy prices, America prospers. When we don't, as we saw back in the 70s, and we saw once again here in the early 2020s, then America struggles. And so low cost, abundant, affordable energy is really at the heart of our prosperity here. And so that's our goal here with the Western Caucus, is to deliver the message about unleashing American energy, accessing our minerals, and let's get permitting reform here to be able to do these things in the 21st century. I sit on the Natural Resources Committee and chair the Federal Lands Subcommittee, and we are going to be busy. We're going to be busy because we want to see good forest management. We want to see local control. That term coordination, if you followed me at all, I use that term coordination all the time. It is embedded in federal law. These federal agencies should be coordinating, treating local people as equals, not subordinates. That's what our federal government should be doing when when they're out there working with our local governments and protecting our multiple use heritage. We should go back to that multiple use heritage that has been set aside here over the last few decades. I think we have some momentum coming out of the last session of Congress. While there was not big reforms that happened, there were reforms like the Explore Act, like the Fix Our Forests Act. There are things like that that are moving through the pipeline. Now, as Representative LaMalfa has said, with the new administration and with control of both houses, hopefully we can work on bigger things. Maybe we can get some NEPA reform. Let's get some ESA reform. I mean, I think about our state. The wolf is recovered. The wolf is recovered in our state. 26 wildlife biologists from the Upper Great Lakes said a decade ago, you have to delist the wolf. And so perhaps we can get that done this time. I introduced the bill once again last session, and we're going to get it through the House, and hopefully we can move it through the Senate also and get it to the president. And I would just close by saying this. It is a great pleasure to work with Western Caucus, and we do have the best field trips, don't we? We have the best field trips all across these great places across America. But the 21st century, it is a time for choosing for our country. Is this going to be a Chinese century, or is it going to be an American century? You see what the Chinese are doing when they've just restricted the availability of antimony to be able to come into the United States, a critical mineral here for us to be able to produce those a variety of things that are used so widely in an advanced society like we have here in the 21st century. The 20th century was clearly an American century. Think back to the year 2000 when we left, when we were leaving the 20th century. We had decided the winners of the two world wars. We stood astride the globe. Now, once again, that decision is being made as China is ascendant and as they use their ideology to try to control the rest of the world. The decision's going to be made whether free people are going to win or the communist ideology, once again, is going to be ascendant. If we utilize natural resources for our prosperity in America, we can make the 21st century an American century also.